Hello, my name is Beck and today I'm going to be doing a Q&A. I recently tweeted and asked you guys to ask me some questions, so today I'm going to be answering the tweets that you guys sent me. So first up, I got a tweet from Kelly and she asked me a couple of questions. So the first one is, which 5 fictional characters would you invite to a dinner party and why? Straight away I want to think of Harry Potter, so I don't want to go with like all the cliche characters from Harry Potter, like not the trio or Sirius Black or anything, even though those guys are my favourites. I wanted to invite Minerva McGonagall because I think she is an absolute boss. She's awesome. I also want to invite Night Eyes from the Robin Hobb series because I love his character so much. I don't know if he'll actually be able to communicate at this dinner party, but we're just going to go with it. I want to invite Mia Corvair as well because I feel like she would not get along with anyone and that would make things really interesting. I'll probably invite Falkio from Trader's Blade because he always has something to say and it's usually quite funny. And then I just need one more. And I'd probably invite as my last character Enzo from The Art of Racing in the Rain because he's a Labrador, so I feel like he could actually have a conversation with Night Eyes. The next question that Kelly asked me is, what's the opening line of your favourite book? And I actually don't know. It's probably some generic description from a Robin Hobb book, but I do always remember Nevernight and it's people often shit when they die. And Kelly's last question is, if you owned a bookstore, what would you call it? Beck's Books. The alliteration is there. I don't know. The next questions that I have from Twitter are from Dani and she actually has her own channel, so I will link that below because she's lovely. Dani asked a bunch of questions in a row, so I might just treat these like rapid fire questions. So favourite fantasy world, Robin Hobb's Elderling series. Love that world so much and it's so beautifully written. Favourite main character, I want to say Mia because she tends to stick out, but also Quoth from The Name of the Wind because I love that series so much, and Falkio from Trader's Blade because from 7 pages into Trader's Blade he had me laughing already, and that is always the sign of a good character. My favourite thing about BookTube, everyone says it, the community, the way people share videos, comment on everyone's videos and are just so supportive. Like for example the Magical Readathon that I'm going to be participating in, that video will probably already be live actually, but the community just built from that alone is absolutely incredible with the positivity, so definitely the community for that question. I do say the community because when I first pitched the idea to start a BookTube channel, obviously Dave had all the equipment and I had nothing, so I had to really convince him, and he was like, alright, I'll go with it, but was worried about, I guess, the way the internet would receive someone who was just putting themselves out there. But he was really floored at the incredible community on BookTube and it's just so incredibly beautiful. And then Dani's last question is something we don't know about you, and I actually own a unicycle and I can't ride it, so there you go. The next series of questions I got from Elizabeth at Elizabeth is Writing. She asked me, as a writer, which books or authors are you most inspired by? And I would definitely say Brandon Sanderson because obviously he's my favourite author. I did a reading guide. I love his books so much. I can't wait to reread all of them. But just the way he works and his work ethic, and he puts so many books out a year and he constantly builds such incredible and detailed worlds that I just fall in love with every time, and I'm so convinced that they could be real and you could just live in them because they're that vivid. And he also has such a rapport with his fans. He interacts with them online, he shares their work, he goes to book signings and he doesn't limit the amount of books that you get to sign because he's got so many published and people always bring so many up to him to get signed. So he's just got such a brilliant relationship with his fans, with his work, and I just love it so much. I think it's incredible. Elizabeth also says, if you could visit anywhere in the world, where would you go first? And I've already actually been to Japan and that was my number one, but I'd also love to go to the UK and Europe and Italy especially, so those are definitely on the cards to do soon. And also New Zealand because I feel like snowboarding there would be awesome. And then lastly, Elizabeth asked me my favourite weather or season. I really don't like hot weather. I feel like I'm definitely a cold weather person, so autumn or fall, I guess in the US, is my favourite season. Jess from A Geek With A Hat asked me, what zodiac sign do you think your fave book character is? And I'm sorry Jess, but I don't believe in zodiac signs. Sarah asked me top 3 favourite manga series, and this is such a hard question because I grew up with a bunch of them and they're like my OPs, but I would definitely say Fruits Basket because it's just so lovely and cute. I would say Death Note because it's so intricate and dark and it really raises questions about humanity and it can get very existential as well. My third one, I actually haven't finished it, but I started the anime and I've started the manga, and it is Fullmetal Alchemist. I definitely recommend Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. It's about these 2 brothers who are alchemists. They lose their mother and then they try and resurrect her, and it has a huge toll on their bodies, and so they're going to try and fix the wrongs they have done. And that is a very rapid fire synopsis, but it's a beautiful series and I would highly recommend it. We're just going to pretend that the Netflix live action doesn't exist. Sarah also asked me Wed, Bed, Behead, Ed, Al and Winry. I feel like I'd behead Al because he's a suit of armor and it doesn't really matter. I don't know, probably bed Al and wed Winry, or the other way around. I don't know, I feel like those two are pretty interchangeable with this question. And lastly, Sarah asked me, what would your weapon of choice be if you were training to be an assassin at the Red Church? And that the Red Church is in the Nevernight series. I don't know what weapon I would have, probably a really small stabby one. Bret asked me, in the post-apocalyptic fires of the future, what one fictional character would you want to be your ally? They can be from whatever series, regardless of timeline, blah, blah, blah. I'd probably say Night Eyes from the Robin Hobb series because he's very resourceful and very down to earth and he just understands how to survive, and that's how Fitz survived for a long time. So I want to say Night Eyes because I feel like he would keep me going through the dark times. Bret also asked me, he said, also less bookish, but your favourite hobby outside of reading, and also most disappointing recent read of the year. My favourite hobby outside of reading is really hard to pin down because I haven't done it for a while, but I really do like drawing. It's a bit of a boring answer, but aside from drawing, I also do a lot of exercise. I do yoga weekly and I often lift weights with Dave, so I guess exercise is a hobby. I don't actually have any one-star books for this year. I did rate The Painted Man low last year, but I kind of want to move on from that because I've just talked about that one-star book for a while. But I haven't actually rated anything one-star this year, and I'm hoping not to because I'm reading books that I've highly anticipated on my to-be-read pile, so those are mostly going to be upwards of 3 or 4 stars at least. So hopefully no 1 stars are there. I will say that I did pick up Priori of the Orange Tree this year, and I had been expecting that book for months, and so my anticipation for it had built and built and built and built, and it wasn't exactly what I was expecting, so maybe that could count as a disappointing read, but I did still like it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, so I don't think I can really count that, but I'm gonna say it anyway. The next question is from Liv, and she asks, which fantasy world would you like to explore or live in and why? I need to stop saying the Realm of the Elderlings series by Robin Hobb, so I'm probably going to say the Greatcoats world because it's just another fantasy world that I really like, and magic kind of exists on the margins, so you don't have to be magical or be some powerful being in order to survive there. So I would probably pick Falkio's world because anywhere else I'd probably die really fast. So the next question is from Sun Summoner, and they asked me, how did you start journaling? What is your least favourite genre to read in? I recently talked about journaling in one of my reading vlogs, and I don't actually conventionally bullet journal, but I just started journaling because I wanted to start writing, but I don't actually know where to start or what to do. So I thought putting it down in a creative way would actually motivate me to actually interrogate the ideas I had. So that's kind of why I started journaling, because I wanted to get something down on paper, and once it's down on paper it's easier to build from rather than having it all in my head, and I was just not starting at all, so it's been a great start. And then my least favourite genre to read in is probably historical fiction and probably romance as well. They're not really the things that I go for. If they're mixed into other genres and they're kind of subtle, then that's fine. I did read The Book Thief and I liked it, but it wasn't something that I would go and actively picked up. Because The Book Thief was gifted to me, I felt obligated to read it. I probably wouldn't have gone out of my way and picked it up otherwise. But yeah, definitely romance just on its own as well. I can't really think of a romance or women's fiction book that I really enjoyed. Maybe Evelyn Hugo, but that's pretty much it. Little Red Writing Whitney asked, a popular book or character that you actually dislike? I don't dislike this character, but I just don't understand the ridiculous hype around him, and it's Kaz Brekker from the Six of Crows series. He's just kind of like a teenage mob boss. I don't understand why he's so popular. I do like him, but I just don't understand the hype train for this particular character. Sam asked me the last books that you rated 5 stars and the last book I rated 1 star. Again, 1 star this year, I haven't had one, so I'm hoping that I don't have one at all this year. Last book I rated 5 stars, I don't actually think I've had a 5-star read this year either. My last wrap up, all of the books were 4 stars. I want to predict that Queenslayer, the next book by Sebastian de Castell, will be a 5 stars, and I think that comes out in May, so hopefully I have a 5-star read coming up. Chelsea Marie Downey asked me, before you start a new creative piece, do you do research to see if something similar already exists? And honestly, I have not gone further enough into a project of mine to actually bother researching it. I feel like that would only happen to me at this early stage of creating and writing. If I came up with a title, I'd probably Google it to see what else exists, because recently I've come across different band names just working in the job I'm working in, and one band name is literally called The Internet, and if you Google The Internet, how are you supposed to find them? Before I made my Brandon Sanderson reading guide video, I Googled his books to see if any kind of reading guide without spoilers existed, and I couldn't really find one across YouTube or Google. He does have on his website a list of books that you should read and when, but I was very nervous navigating his website because I was really worried I'd stumble across a particular synopsis that would spoil me. So that's why I made the video, because it's an easy resource for people to pick up and have a look at. Caitlin asked me a couple of questions, so the next bunch are all going to be from her. So thank you, Caitlin. She said, do you ever get book characters from other books confused? What about authors? I don't really get books from different authors confused. If it's Robin Hobb, for example, I go back and I look at all her titles and all of them are pretty similar and all of them are set in the same world, so I really need to actually write myself a list so that I don't get confused looking back at her books, because I really do want to reread them, but I don't want to reread them out of order. She also said, what about characters by the same authors? Do I get those confused? No, not really. I think Amy Kaufman wrote about Amia in one of her series, and then J. Kristoff wrote about Amia in his Nevernight series. Those two authors tend to co-write books a lot, and I don't get those Mias confused a lot. I feel like if they're a good writer, they will set their character pretty well, and so it's really hard to confuse things. Caitlin also said, what are your thoughts on writing in the margins of books and using receipts as bookmarks? Sacrilegious or creating something sacred? As a literary studies major, writing in my books doesn't really bother me at all. I used to write notes everywhere, all over my books. I used to highlight things. It's honestly something that I would encourage and not discredit. It is definitely not something that is sacrilegious. It's something that I did quite a lot. I haven't done it a lot recently, but that's because I've just read my books for leisure rather than study. But if I did go back and went to annotate some books, I'd probably just buy a generic paperback version rather than a hardcover, because hardcovers are very expensive in Australia, so I don't want to do that. I obviously wouldn't write in my exclusive editions either, because those are exclusive and meant to be pristine and pretty. Caitlin also asked me, not sure if I've been asked this before, but what is your process for reviewing books? Are you a go with the flow reviewer or a meticulous note taker? I am definitely not a meticulous note taker. I go more kind of on how I feel about the book after I finish reading it, which kind of comes back to bite me if I haven't read a book in a while and I need to review it and I've left it a couple of months. I kind of have to go and skim read things again to refresh my memory. I kind of look at it with plot, character, pacing, and my general interest in a book, and that's how I'll review it, to see whether all those things are done really well and that I really liked it. And the last question from Caitlin is, what is a book that you have read recently that made you go, I need art of this everywhere? I know a lot of subscription boxes and stuff for young adult readers have had a lot of Six of Crows and Throne of Glass stuff, and I'm just kind of over that movement. I want some new stuff to come in. I do really like the Sebastian de Castell books. Obviously, he's one of my favourite authors. I don't have any art of Spellslinger whatsoever, and the covers are absolutely beautiful. They're like playing cards. Art based on this would be incredible. And there's pretty much none, if any, existing. Same with the Greatcoat series. I really want more art of that. And I also want more art of the Robin Hobb series. She has 15 books and I barely see any fan art or any kind of merchandise created for her series. So that definitely needs to change. And then lastly, this is my final question, and it comes from Steph, and she has a lovely booktube channel as well. So I will link that below and in the cards for you. And she sent me a question on Instagram, and she says, what is your favorite creative outlet? And also, do I have a reading routine? So my favorite creative outlet is actually filming reading vlogs. I love that they hold me accountable to read my never-ending TBR pile, but just on a more quieter process rather than a sharing as I go process like with video filming. I do really like writing and I like drawing, and I just like writing little notes to myself and writing notes in my phone that I can one day go back to and expand on. I really like that process. Obviously, reading is a big one, and with my reading routine, it's suffered recently because I haven't just made time for myself to sit down and read, so I want to change that with the Owls Readathon. I really just want to sit down after work and read a book, but I get so distracted by going on Twitter, by watching booktube videos of other people. That routine has kind of gone out the window at the start of 2019, so I really need to get back on board with that. I do listen to audiobooks all the time though, which is something that I haven't dropped off on, and I'm really proud of that, so hopefully my physical reads can go to match that, and I finish off as many books on my TBR as I can. Thank you so much for all of your questions. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed my answers. Let me know in the comments if you do any of the things that I do. Thank you so much again for watching, and I'll catch you in my next video. Bye.